From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com. Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with my idol, Larry Woody, longtime sports writer, racing fanatic, racing writer, radio guru. Larry, is there anything you don't do?
I thought you were running out of adjectives there.
Well, I did, actually. That's why I asked. Is there anything you don't
No,
do?
there's not. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I bet his wife would vouch for that, too.
How you doing? Good week for racing, wasn't it?
It has been a great week for racing, and the best part is the season is finally over. And what a way to finish in Homestead-Miami, Larry. Jeff Gordon took the race.
Yep.
Brad Keselowski took the championship at Homestead-Miami. They had great weather. They had a great crowd. And early on, it was a Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch kind of show.
Yep.
But in the end, now, all week and early in the week, Jimmy Johnson at some of the press conferences early really tried to get into Brad Keselowski's head. You know, well, we've been here before, this kind of pressure, that kind of thing. You know, this team, Larry, first mistake. It's kind of like that first turnover in a football game. First mistake. The 48 car comes down pit road, and they forgot a lug nut.
Yeah, it's so uncharacteristic. And after the race last Sunday at Homestead, Joe, I was trying to decide, did Brad Keselowski win the championship or did Jimmy Johnson lose it? Because, you know, he had the disastrous race the week before at Phoenix. Right. Blew a tire, hit the wall, wiped out. And that's really, Joe, probably when the championship was decided. This was mop-up work for Keselowski at Homestead-Miami. He just needed 15th or better. But then, like you say, Jimmy, to add proverbial insult to injury, leaves a lug nut off, has to come in, gets down a lap, and then wipes out, you know, in the
rear end goes,
yeah,
I was going to say, after
car,
that,
car breaks. And,
rear end goes out. And how often have you seen a Hendrick car break?
Just almost never. You know, Jimmy won 5 straight championships because he was bulletproof. He was Superman on a racetrack, and bad things didn't happen to Jimmy. Suddenly, bad things the last 2 weeks with the championship on the line, it was his to lose. Remember, 2 weeks ago, Jimmy was the leader, and people thought, including me, he'd cruise to the championship. Jimmy Johnson doesn't fumble on the goal line. Well, he not only fumbled once, he fumbled twice, and Keselowski walked away with it. Having said that, that's racing, and Keselowski had put himself in a position to be able to recover the fumble and run it back for a touchdown and win the championship. So congratulations to Brad.
Not that I've waited 30 years to be able to say this. However, Larry, when we started Pit Pass a few weeks ago at the height of the championship race, buddy, I think you took Jimmy Johnson.
Is there any way to recall all those previous shows?
No, I've got them downloaded and saved.
That's the trouble. In the old newspaper business, we could go out and get all those old clippings and throw them away and denied we said it. But nowadays, it's out there for. No, I thought Jimmy, like we said, Joe, 3 weeks ago when he took the points lead with a couple to go, I said it's over. Jimmy's not. It's his championship to lose, and he's not going to lose it. But I was wrong. He made some mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes. Jimmy and the pit crew, frankly, you know, some people said when he blew a tire, Jimmy was overdriving at the time, and if he hadn't been pressing so hard, he might not have wiped his car out. He might have survived a blown tire, but he couldn't survive smashing into the wall. So enough blame to go around or fault to go around, but the bottom line, plain bad luck. I think, Joe, it's like Darrell Waltrip used to say, you have so much luck deposited in the luck bank, and Jimmy was overdrawn at the luck bank, and he ran out those last 2 races. I think that pure and simple. But again, don't want to take anything away from Brad Keselowski, and what a great story for Roger Penske, wonderful 75-year-old team owner, one of the classiest guys I've ever known in motorsports. Paid his dues, worked so long and so hard, won just about everything you could win in motorsports except a championship. And finally, Roger Penske got one. He's got a bright young driver, and I think Keselowski and Roger Penske are going to get a few more before they're through.
Interesting that Rogers won 14, 15 Indy 500s.
15, I think. 15.
But never had won. And a lot of folks went, well, wait a minute now. Rusty Wallace won in the 2-car, but that's when Raymond Beadle owned it. That's before Penske bought Beadle out.
Yeah, Penske wasn't the team owner when Rusty won his championship.
You talk a little bit about Keselowski. One of the things that Brad said in the post-race conference was he was a little disappointed that Jimmy wasn't on the track.
Yeah.
He wanted him there to say that when he won it, his competition was on the racetrack.
So people like me wouldn't be asking, did Brad win it or did Jimmy lose it? So, but again, we don't want to take anything away from him because that's the nature of the sport. You could ask that almost about anybody.
Sure.
In any time somebody wins a championship, did they win it? Well, they did, but they also had some help from people who fizzled down the stretch, and that's why they won it. So no, Keselowski won the thing fair and square, and put a big exclamation point on it by Jimmy Johnson not winning it with the lead with 2 to go.
One piece of trivia for years down the road, Larry, this great battle between Jimmy Johnson and Brad Keselowski. Johnson, of course, falls out. So who finishes second? Well, everybody's going to say Jimmy Johnson, and they're going to be wrong because Clint Boyer finished second in the race, and with that finish was able to pass Jimmy Johnson and take over second place in the points, which also begs the question, had it not been for Phoenix,
what if?
What if?
Yeah, because the Jeff Gordon, Clint Boyer brouhaha at Phoenix a week before when Jeff wrecked Clint, took him, knocked him out so far down in the standings that even finishing second the next race at Homestead, that wasn't enough to get him back in championship contention. But again, that's all those what ifs. I mean, if you did it, Joe, you could almost go back every race and find some incident on the track. You say, man, what if he had missed that? He would have been up so many more points in the standings. But again, it's fun to play those what if scenarios, isn't it?
Oh, it always is. And
sure.
All the stories that came out of Miami Homestead, Larry, or Homestead-Miami, I guess is the way they want it pronounced. But Larry, late in the race, trying to get to the front, Jeff Gordon had to pass Clint Boyer.
Yeah, and what a dramatic moment that was.
Can you imagine what's going through his mind?
Yeah, because Jeff's having a good race. He realizes he's probably out of championship contention at that point. How tempting was it for Clint to just slide up the track a little and ruin Jeff's day the way Jeff ruined Clint's week before? But to the credit of both of them, they both the past was the past, and they didn't let it carry over. I thought it was classy on Clint Boyer's part not to try to retaliate and ruin Jeff Gordon's day.
I have a feeling, though, Larry, there was probably a discussion with both of these drivers before the race that said, boys, if you get close together, you're under the microscope.
He knew the microscope was turned on, didn't it?
And you better hope nothing breaks on the car.
Yeah. And don't be drinking any more of that 5-hour energy drink, Clint, before before the race.
Now, as fast as he made it through the pits from pit road to the trailer last week at Phoenix, you got to think maybe he popped a bottle real quick before he got out of the car.
But anyway, a lot of drama, a good finish to. I thought overall it was an interesting season. There was some lags and sags and low, kind of dull moments. But overall, I thought, Joe, it was a pretty good season in the Cup Series.
Turned out well. I mean, I think Larry, the chase brought exactly what everybody was after when they first came up with the idea of running the playoffs, the chase. This is what they needed.
They needed it desperately, Joe, because as we've said so many times, NASCAR down the stretch run was competing against college football and NFL. And in seasons past, I remember the last year before the chase, Matt Kenseth built a big points lead and just coasted through the last 4 or 5 races, the most boring thing in the world. And Brian France and his people said, we can't keep this up. We've got to do
going.
something. So to France's credit, they implemented the chase, and it brought a playoff flavor and atmosphere and drama to NASCAR, because with the first 26 races, all the attention was, as it winds down, who's going to make the chase? Can Jeff Gordon get in? Can Junior hang on? You know, and that leading up to setting the field, it's just like in the NFL in the playoffs. Are the Titans going to get in? Are they going to get bumped out?
Sure.
So you got all that pre-chase drama building. Then once the chase starts, it's a whole new game, as we saw last year with Tony Stewart. He hadn't won a race in the first 26. He squeezes it into the chase, wins 5 of the 6, and wins the championship. So it gives NASCAR a whole new season with whole new drama at a time when they desperately need some drama. So I think it's a good idea.
Closing out a couple of other series in Homestead-Miami this week, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins the Nationwide Series title over Elliott Sadler, who comes up just short again.
Hard luck, Elliott.
Oh, man, has he been. The most fun of the weekend, though, may have been Friday night's Camping World Truck Series event, where James Busher won the title. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. But the finish of the race, when Cale Gale beat Kyle Busch to the line by a foot or so. Kind of interesting. Cale Gale's father, Bubba Gale, is a longtime and very successful runner down on the Gulf Coast in the Mobile, Pensacola area. And if Cale sounds familiar, yeah, Bubba and his wife were big Cale Yarborough fans. And Cale's been making his way through the series.
And he's named after Cale Yarborough.
Yeah.
That was the first question I asked Cale Gale when he came to the Super Speedway. Yeah, are you named after who we think you named after? And he said, yes, sir, I am. Said, my dad was a big Cale Yarborough fan.
Well, he got his first win. How did he do it? Well, on a green-white checker finish, Kyle Busch and the Dollar General machine got a big lead. Cale tracked him down. They come off of 4, coming to the checkered flags, and Cale had a bit of a stretch, and Kyle decided to kind of side draft him, and Cale decided to show Kyle what it's like to raise along the wall, and he pulls out a victory. Not anything you wouldn't have seen from anybody else. Cale did tonight. Unfortunately, Kyle's response was typical. Well, put in the wall, you saw that.
Joe, the Camping World Series is the most competitive racing series in NASCAR,
Yes.
and has been for 3 or 4 years. It just doesn't get the attention that obviously the Cup Series does, because they got the superstars in there. But as far as just plain old stock car racing, or stock truck racing in this case, race after race, night after night, they put on the best show. It reminds me of Buddy Williams show up at Highland Rim sometimes. Yeah. And these guys, Joe, they race because, again, don't harp on it week after week, but they're out there mostly for the fun of it. They make a pretty good living, but they're not superstars. They don't get anywhere near the attention that the guys in the second and third series do, but they do it just because they love it. Ron Hornaday once said that. I said, Ron, why do you keep doing that? You don't need it. You've got all the money you need. He said, I'd do it because it's fun to race. That's pure and simple.
And that's the great thing about that series. You've got the veterans who are running because they just want to run. You've got these young kids. 1, they love it. 2, they want to get to that
trying to work their way up. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a great mash, if you will, of the bunch.
Did you say mash or mesh? A little of both sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah. But they put on a heck of a show.
They put on a heck of a show. And to kind of pull this segment in, I never thought I would say something like this, but boy, it's been tough on Kyle Busch. All the good luck, he's kind of like Jimmy Johnson. All the good luck that he's had the last 2 or 3 years deserted him this year.
He's overdrawn at the luck bank.
Boy, he is way overdrawn.
And I'll say this, he's a heck of a driver. I think I disagree with a lot of the stuff he does off the track, but you got to admit, Joe, when that kid's on the track, there's a spark of electricity in the air that other drivers don't bring. So he does bring some energy and excitement to the sport.
You're exactly right. We're about to be overdrawn on time because we got a special guest coming up in our second segment today. Buddy Williams, one of the owners at Highland Rim Speedway, is going to come in and answer some really tough questions because I've been waiting about 4 months.
I'm ready to grill him, aren't you?
Yeah, he doesn't know what's coming. So we've got to get Buddy prepared. Buddy, don't walk out that door.
I feel sorry for him.
We're gonna get him all set up. We'll be back with more on Pit Pass.
Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
And welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with my idol, Larry Woody. And between us, 1/3 of the ownership of the new Highland Rim Speedway, Mr. Buddy Williams. Buddy, along with Jerry Criswell and Roger Cunningham, stepped up to the plate earlier this year. Didn't ask any municipality for any money, didn't ask for any tax break, just stepped up and said, yeah, we'll buy it, we'll operate it. Buddy, you should have done a football team.
My sport's racing, Joe. I'll have to tell you, racing is my heart, it's my sport, and we needed to save that. It was about to go bye-bye.
Buddy, you answered kind of part of my question, but why would you want to buy the track? It's not, you're not going to get filthy rich, as you know. You've worked your tail off all summer to get the thing going. Why on earth would anybody want to buy a racetrack?
Because that track had a 50-year heritage, Larry, and it has people that have been going there, and their grandkids are now going there. I've raced there for 30 years, and it's part of life up there, and it was fixing to go away. And we've had so many things go away, the super speedway. We just couldn't afford to lose another one of the venues here in town.
Has it been everything you thought it'd be so far?
It's been everything and then some.
And more, right?
And more. It's been fun to do in a way, and it's been a lot of work in a way, but the biggest pleasure I had was opening night to see the grandstands completely packed, standing room only.
Buddy, it can be pretty simple sometimes to say, gee, I think I'll go do this. I want to buy this business. Boy, this, and racetracks, one of my things over all the years I've been involved, one of the things that's always bugged me is you get folks who are racers who say, gee, I'm going to buy this racetrack, we're going to run it better, without understanding the business of racing. Because there's a whole lot more to it than just opening the gates and letting the cars run.
And collecting the money as the
exactly,
crowd walks
paying
in.
out the money.
Quite a bit.
You guys, however, the three of you together, we're talking about three very successful businessmen on their own. I know you wanted to save it, and I know you have a passion for the place, and so do Jerry and so do Roger. But I'm guessing you guys sat down before you made this decision and actually built a business plan and said, you know, there's more to it than just opening the gates and taking the money and running the cars.
We absolutely did. Roger and I walked through the track countless times, and every time we'd walk through, we'd say, okay, well, we're going to need to do the bleachers, and we're going to need to fix a concession stand. But every time we went through, something else popped up that we needed to do. So we had to have a pretty definite business plan. We have a 5-year business model for it, and we plan each winter in the off season to do different things to bring it up to a first-class facility. It's like any other 50-year-old facility. It had been neglected somewhat and needed a whole lot of maintenance, but the big thing was we needed to turn around an attitude up there. We needed things to change as far as the officiating, as far as favoritism. We went in this as racers to say, how would I want to be treated if I came to this track?
Buddy, you used to race at the track, and I covered you. Well, some of your races, you were known as the Band-Aid man, because I went up to your car one day and it was held together, you said, with duct tape and baling wire and Band-Aids. And you said, yeah, I'm known as the Band-Aid man. The point being, having raced there and having been in these guys' shoes, I think that'd give you an advantage, buddy, because you know what people, fans and racers expect at Highland Rim Speedway because you've been one.
I absolutely do. I've been there 30 years, and I am the Band-Aid man, the Holy Trinity, duct tape, baling wire, and tie wraps hold my vehicle together, and it's got me through a pretty good racing career.
Yeah, you had a
doing
pretty good
that,
race.
so yeah.
Lost some right side baling wire at one point, and the duct tape broke, but other than that, you had a good night. Joe, good point going back to your point about off-season and everything involved. Buddy and I were talking before the show, asked him how it's going. He said, we've been busy all week draining the pipes. Can you, and stuff like that you don't think about.
Exactly.
You got to winterize the track because everything will freeze and burst, you know, up on that ridge top. So little things like that. It's not as simple as just sit there and count the money when it comes rolling in. It's a lot of off-track stuff that you're involved in.
There's quite a bit. We are starting our winter renovations. We were on a tight schedule, and we wanted to get open this year and have some races, so we didn't get everything finished that we had intended on doing from the get-go. So this winter we're back working again 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, renovating the track.
But let's talk about what you did get done. You've replaced some walls. Everything, of course, has had a coat of paint and all that. but you've literally almost from the ground up, made improvements, changes, and rebuilt restroom facilities, from restroom facilities to concession facilities to ticket gates, and even the grandstands, the bleachers, because I know at one point the goal had been to open earlier than you actually did, but you couldn't get the bleachers. The storms of 2 years ago and last year literally depleted the aluminum bleacher industry inventory.
It was a tough job to start with, and it got tougher.
Yeah, it got worse.
It got considerably tougher. There was a $31 million backlog of insurance jobs just for bleachers, and there's only a few mills in the country that make these extruded bleachers. So we'd get in line and beg and get a few boards. Sometimes they'd be damaged in shipping. It was really a hard thing to get those bleachers up, but it's something that needed to be done. Do away with the old wooden bleachers that were rickety and put some good stuff in there for our fans' safety and their comfort. We're going to put them on a heck of a show, and we're going to sell them the whole seat, but we hope they only need the edge of it.
Oh boy,
and the good news is those bleachers, once you got them up, they were occupied.
Yeah,
they were.
I remember you said the opening night, you're almost surprised, a little stunned at the people pouring in up there.
Absolutely, it was great.
And that's kind of a difference, because so much of what we've seen in local weekly racing here in this area and in other areas across the country is the crowds aren't there, the cars aren't there. That's not something you guys have fought. You've had good crowds, good car counts.
We absolutely have, and if our drivers continue to race like they've been racing and put on good competitive shows, that's what brings the people in. Nobody wants to sit and watch one car a half a lap ahead of everybody running away with the show. They want to watch 6 or 8 cars vying for the lead every time.
You know, a decade ago, Nashville, Middle Tennessee was one of the racing hotbeds in the country. The TV ratings were consistently higher in the Nashville market. My friends at Atlanta, Charlotte, some of the Talladega, Bristol said they sold more race tickets at those cup races from Middle Tennessee and anywhere else. Then people over the last few years, they say, well, racing's just dying out in this area. I don't think it was. I think, well, maybe the racing was struggling, tracks were struggling, like the old fairgrounds and the Highland Rim and some of those, but I still thought the fans didn't go away. They don't migrate like, you know, like bluebirds or something. The fans are still here. They've just got to have some racing, like you said, Joe, that's interesting to go to and worth the value of their ticket. And so with the fairgrounds making a comeback and with the Highland Rim making a comeback, I still think the fans are there. People like Buddy just got to go out and work a little harder at promoting, which frankly I think promoters in the past got a little lazy and spoiled because racing was selling itself. Now they've got to go out and sell racing again like the old guys did. But Buddy's living proof that it can be done because he's doing it.
And you've made some changes, and I consider them major structural changes in my mind. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to go to the one that has impressed me the most. Any racetrack operator will tell you that one of your major sources of revenue is going to be beer. I mean, you know, that's the way it is. That's the way stock car racing has been. We've always sold it as a family sport, and you know, you try to control it, and you know, anything in moderation used appropriately. Sometimes you get folks who go past that line. You guys decided not even to take the chance. You just said it's not going to be any.
Highland Rim has operated for 50 years. 49 of those years were beer free. They had beer for one season, and there was more problems than you could shake a stick at. We would have loved to have had that revenue, but we're promoting the family values, and we want to have it where you can bring your children and not be afraid that some drunk's going to fall over them. So we absolutely did away with the beer.
One of the other things that local tracks across the country have started doing, in the old days, Larry, I'll call it, and Buddy, you had 3 divisions, 4 divisions that might run on a single night. Now we see more often that tracks come out with 10 or 11 divisions, if for no other reason than to increase the revenue from the competitors, and it becomes almost a club sport because the drivers are almost paying themselves back. How many divisions are too many? Or at least to run on a single night. Let me put that. How many divisions make up too fractured a show?
Probably 10 or more divisions will fracture the show, and makes it long. Everybody doesn't like dwarf cars. Everybody doesn't like late model stock cars. Everybody doesn't like Chevettes. But there are enough people that like them to make it worth their while to run. We plan on tailoring it back a little bit next year to where we have some pretty good shows every week. We're going to have a great show every week. Let me correct that. Pretty good's not the correct word to use. We're going to have a great show every week.
Joe, my take on it, for what it's worth, too many divisions is like too many college football bowls. A lot of people complain there's too many college football bowls. I disagree. For those teams that are playing in those bowls, the minor league bowls, the Sandy Flush Bowl, that's the biggest football game will be played this year for those teams and those fans. If somebody doesn't want to watch, don't watch. That's my approach with too many divisions at the track. If you're not interested in that particular lower division, don't go. And my only suggestion would be maybe start some of those races, the lower division, sort of the really hobby level, earlier in the afternoon. Those people, drivers and their fans, can go ahead and race, and then start building your bigger divisions up to around prime time racing. And that way people are just interested in the so-called major divisions. They can time it so they get to the track 5:30 or 6. The other divisions have been racing since maybe 2 or 2:30. They've got their shows in on their haulers and gone home. And for those people and their fans, the moms and dads and the drivers, that's the biggest race of the season. Those little races, they can get them in, get them out of the way, and it's not going to, like college football bowls, it's not going to hurt the so-called big league races when they roll in and take their turn. So I don't think there's such a thing as too many divisions. Yeah.
What if, even from a time constraint, because you can't play every college bowl game on the same day.
The time constraint's a little, because that makes Buddy and his people work harder, but he loves hard work.
Obviously, these guys did this. But if even as a cost savings measure, if you said, okay, we're going to take these are two of my top two divisions, I'm going to run one week, one the next week, and kind of switch them back and forth. Does that work?
We are studying that concept for next year right now. We are discussing that. The one thing we don't want to do is have a major division, have all of your major divisions one week and all of your under divisions another week.
No, you don't
we
do that.
Want to mix the show up where if fans come to our show, they're going to get a good show, whether the late models run, whether the sportsmen run, whether the super stock, whatever runs that night's going to be a good show for them, and they're not really going to miss anything to say like they were.
And if the division doesn't have enough cars, a big enough car count or a big enough fan support, if you got 3 cars on the track and 12 people in the stands, obviously you just explain, well, your division's not big enough to support itself, maybe you better move up to another division and incorporate with that. But again, those things will work themselves out based on support levels or non-support, and then adjusted accordingly. But I'm with football bowls, I just don't think there's too many, because if you're not interested in one, don't watch it. And let everybody else enjoy the ones that do watch it.
I'm still a firm believer in a college football playoff.
But you can have
bigger.
Well, that's another show for
That's
another time. You can have them plus all the bowls.
Sure. Can you hang around a few minutes?
I'd love to.
All right, we're gonna keep Buddy with us for the final segment. First, though, we got to pay a bill or two. Stay with us. We'll be back on Pit Pass.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Pit Pass. Joe Williams, Larry Woody, and our special guest, Buddy Williams, part of the ownership group at Highland Rim Speedway. Also got to say a special thanks to the folks at USA Motor and Machine over on Cleveland. Man, without them, we couldn't be here. Anything from your daily driver to your race car. I bet you've even let them do a little work on your race car before.
One of my favorite places to go.
But as we wrap up here, a couple of quick notes. Racing really is a family sport. And sad news this week. The Rim, the fairgrounds, everybody who's raced in Middle Tennessee lost a special supporter with the passing of Big Daddy Bradley out of Murfreesboro.
Mr. Bradley has been a backer of racing for ever since I can remember, which has got to be a long time. I've been racing forever, and Bradley's Paving has been on a ton of cars. He has backed everybody and has really been the heartbeat of that Murfreesboro, Smyrna area up there for those guys running.
He's paved a lot. He's paved a lot of access roads and places around racetracks too. So, yeah, he was involved in more ways than one. Understand you guys on the Highland Rim Facebook page going to have details on services and this kind of thing.
Yes, there will be the details. I think he's going to be buried Saturday, and Friday will be the visitation for him. The details are on our Facebook page.
Right. Speaking of families and the Bradleys, one of the folks that they've been sponsoring here lately, Michael House out of the Spring Hill area, who is married to Sutherland Marlin. Yes, that's Sterling's daughter.
How'd you like to have Sterling for a father-in-law?
Oh man, I've been racing with him. Good news and bad news here. The good news is Mike and Sutherland are expecting a baby in, I guess, 6 months or so. And can you imagine the racing genes this kid's going to have?
And Sterling's already excited about it. He was jabbering on Terrell Davis' radio show the other day about it. He's got one. He said, man, I'm going to have me too.
Yeah.
So he's excited. And the bad news about Michael, of course.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago, if you haven't heard, fire struck their race shop and literally burned everything to the ground, including a couple of cars of Bradley paving on the side.
Sterling's old shop, Cuckoo Marlin's old shop, where Michael was storing a lot of his racing stuff. And those stuff, as you know, buddy, they don't have insurance for racing cars,
shops,
do they?
No, they had rented the track from us that morning and were on the way to getting the cars ready to go up there. Roger House, Michael's daddy, was in there working with him, and he said there was some kind of a propane leak or something, and it just exploded, and it like took their life. They were kind of trapped in it for a little bit. And kind of a funny side story, Michael called my daughter at the racetrack and said, we won't be needing to come to the track. I've been in a small accident, and said, I'm going to the hospital. So she thought he'd been in a car accident. And then later it came out all the details of the explosion. And
Wow.
Yeah, those things are unfortunate because people on that level are kind of struggling, you know, a lot of times to race and pay the bills. But thank goodness Michael's got a wealthy father-in-law.
Yeah. And thankfully everybody's okay.
And, that's the bottom
big
line.
thing.
Everybody's okay.
All right. Last note broke last night before we decided to shoot the show, so that'll tell you about when we did this. Speaking of families in racing, unfortunately, one splitting, Danica Patrick announced that she and her husband are amicably divorcing. She just became, even more so than Miss Sprint Cup, the most eligible on the Cup circuit. You know that, don't you?
Well, she'd also just earlier in the week won most popular driver in the Nationwide Series.
Yeah.
I had met Danica's husband when they came to race at the Super Speedway. A really nice guy. He was a physical therapist. He's helping Danica with some problems, non-racing injuries, and that's how they met. He was 17 years older than Danica. Well, still is 17 years older than Danica. And they had been married 7 years, but when I met him that day, just a super nice guy, but he's really quiet and low key. And of course, Danica's this little dynamo on the track. It just didn't seem like the personalities weren't suited, but again, a lot of times those opposites attract. So sorry to hear it. You're always sorry when a marriage breaks up, but Buddy wanted to know if I have her phone number. No,
actually,
Buddy, I don't have.
Actually, that's what I was getting ready to say. Miss Ann, who is Buddy's wife, Miss Ann, you know, Buddy's not opened his mouth. I gotta give my guy credit here. Larry and I gotta go home and you know, but Buddy here hadn't opened that mouth.
He knows better.
If you kept your hands in your pockets at the auction, you'd been, you know.
I'd have been even better.
But as a promoter, racetrack owner, what's your take on Danica Patrick? A lot of people, personally, I like her. I think I like her personally. I've always liked her. The times I've been around her, I like her personally. I think she's been tremendous for the sport. A lot of people think, no, you media people overhype her and give her a lot of credit she hadn't earned and doesn't deserve. What do you think about her?
I think she's a spiffy driver. I think she can drive anything with wheels. Something that I noticed, she crashed one day, and it must have been the IndyCar stuff, but she took her hands off the steering wheel and held them up to keep from breaking thumbs and fingers and stuff.
And think what quick reactions a driver has to have to do that. I noticed that too.
She seems to have her act together, and she's going to be the thing of the future. I think she's real talented. We'd love to have her at the rim.
I asked you once if you invited her. You know, Paris Hilton was invited to be an honorary starter at the old track in Watertown once, and the promoter turned her down. That was during a reality show, and he was afraid it'd be such a crush of people. I'm serious. Preston,
he was worried.
And Nicole were coming in to do the reality show at Watertown. He's afraid there'd be 100,000 people try to pack in. But anyway,
I'd like to have
the point
that
being, if Danica would like to race at Highland Rim, I'm sure you would.
You find her a car.
We'll find her a car. We'll fix her up. She can do anything she wants there at the track. I believe it will bring in some fans. I think that will pack the stands as well as anything.
Probably right. The good news is that she'll have a place at the Rim to race next year. Buddy, thank you so much for coming in today. We'll look forward to seeing the schedule being released probably through Facebook, Twitter, the social media, print media, and of course,
got a good website too
here on Talkapolis.
We do.
HighlandRim.com.
HighlandRim.com, and our Facebook is Save Highland Rim Speedway. You can get all the social media and know exactly what we're doing by going to those two sites.
Outstanding.
As an old guy who used to started out typing on a manual typewriter, I'm still uncomfortable with the term social media. Check our Facebook page. And I used to have trouble putting my ribbon in my manual typewriter.
Larry is probably thinking of another word that follows social. It ain't media.
Long time ago.
Larry, thank you so much. Hey, we got another one in the books.
Yep, another one done.
Or in this case,
and we'll have Buddy back maybe
catalog.
periodically through the off-season, give us
updates
and get his take on some issues and so forth.
I do appreciate the exposure, and thank you guys for supporting our track.
It's all coming. The Speedway starts again next year. Larry and I will be back, hopefully, next week. Thank you for joining us today. For Buddy Williams and Larry Woody, I'm Joe Williams. We'll see you then.
Microcasting for your city, Talkapolis.